I'm going to change these original lights that hold standard incandescent 1157s, which means a bright filament. It has two filaments, one bright one for turn signal and brakes, and one not so bright, dimmer one for tail lights inside the same light bulb. Anyway, I'm going to replace them with these that LEDs that mount the same way. The box looks the same. They don't have screws to open them up and change bulbs, but they mount the same. And so you got a ground, and you got a tail light, and you got a turn signal light, and you got a backup light. So we got 4 different wires there. They're not the way I was pulling them off. I don't know which color goes where on these. I think the white one's a ground. But anyway, I think the yellow one's going to be a backup light. But I've got paperwork on which one is which, or I can just use a battery and find out which one is which. So one thing we're going to need on this: wire cutters, test light, and something to seal up the wire connections with. You can use shrink tubing, tape, whatever. To get started, you always got to test your light. Make sure your test light works. Go to a known source of power. In this case, it's going to be the battery that's on my camera table, camera cart. Don't know if we see that in the video or not, but we got a light. Doesn't matter which direction you go with incandescents, they're not polarity sensitive. That's an incandescent bulb. So, we gotta try to stay out of the way of the camera. I can barely see the monitor out here in daylight. That is tricky in bright sunlight. I don't need these for a while. Although I could test them out on this thing here. Let's see, are we in the picture there? Let's see. I think these are going to be polarity sensitive. So I think the white is a ground. That's positive on there according to the battery. So let's just see for kicks what we get here. I'm going to ground the white one. Okay, so the yellow wire is my backup light. The black wire is my tail light. The red wire is my brake and turn signal. I'm going to turn the camera off and I'm going to note that. I'm going to write that down somewhere. You gotta know what your wire colors are going to be, and then we got to find out what they are here. And we got a wire just about rubbed through, and it's a ground. So we got to repair that or replace it. So always something, but I'll keep that in mind. That just goes to a ground screw right here on this side, and it's grounded in there. Anyway, people complain my videos have too much detail and too long. Some people complain. There's others that like that because they don't really understand a whole lot and helps them to get a better picture of what's going on. And that goes to, those wires go to a plug that's like this. Goes to a plug like this. This one, original, just jumps over here to the other light, which which we won't be using anymore. The wind is blowing the boom around on this camera because it's very windy. It's springtime right now. It's first week of May. This goes in on the other side. I really don't want to destroy this, so I'm going to just cut into these wires in here and just graft into them. See, the wind's blowing my boom around. We got about a 15-20 mile an hour wind today, but can't wait for that to stop because it's been like that almost every day for the last month. Between heavy rains and heavy winds. I wanted to spray my fruit trees. I can't do it this year because of too much wind. Okay, I'm going to peel all this stuff back and get to these wires. And just tap into this. I got this ground wire untangled from wrapped around some other stuff there. I went on and nipped it off. There was barely anything left. I'm going to cut that flush. I'm going to nip the end of it. I control my cutters like this with my finger in between them, and that's how I control my bite there on the cutters. If you want to use a stripper, you can. This is almost as fast, and if you do it right, it's... Now these wires are black. That's not so good. So I'm going to have to clean those off. I'm going to get an acid solution and clean those off. This is something I really don't like to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to take about a 50-50. I got I don't know, a couple tablespoons of water in there, and I'm going to put about that much muriatic acid in there. And muriatic acid, use that for cleaning concrete and stuff. Use it for a lot of things. You can clean wires with it, but what I don't like is that acid's going to wick on up inside the wire where I can't clean it out good. I'm going to go ahead and soak this in there. The camera's blowing around. See, it's already come clean. Okay, now I got to guard this acid someplace and then come right back. Took a little baking soda and water, about a couple ounces of water and maybe a teaspoon of baking soda. Dip this acid soaked wire in that. I'm going to save this and the acid because I'm probably going to be needing it on other wires because this truck is like 26 years old, I think. I got a piece of shrink tubing kind of tucked in here so it doesn't come down here and get in my way and end up shrinking from soldering before I get it where I want it. Go ahead and wrap the... I can either wrap them or I can just shove them inside of each other. I can't shove them inside each other unless they're twisted the same direction. And I use the highest powered soldering irons I can find. I hate waiting on a slow soldering iron and then working outside in the cold and in the wind. It's not cold right now, but it's windy. It won't let you solder. You have to use a torch. And the trouble with soldering with a torch, you burn up the insulation. We're just going to solder. I'm going to solder all my connections, but I'm only going to do this one on video. People that don't know how to solder and think they do, they don't leave the iron on long enough. You want that solder to flow all the way through and around both sides. And you use rosin core solder on wiring. You gotta make double sure because this wire is not as clean as it could be. After that cools down a second, we'll turn it over and look at the other side, make sure it went through. It could have gone through better than that. I learned that in an electronics class I took when I was in grade school, in summer school. And people have argued with me about that all my life. Well, I think the teacher knew more about it than I did. Now sometimes you can let this you can put a little silicone glue inside the ends of this wire and inside the ends of that tube before you seal this up when it's outside. I'm not going to do that, but it is an option. Carefully do this because this soldering iron does get hot enough to melt that shrink tubing. You want to shrink it, not melt it through. I'll finish that up on the other side here. We got another little spot here where it was rubbing through. But I'm just going to put some silicone on that. I'm going to clean this off a little bit with some sandpaper or something and put some silicone on that and some tape because it's not through very much, just a little bit. It doesn't have to be sandpaper. You could use brake cleaner or any kind of a solvent that dries. It dries clean. I wouldn't put an oil-based solvent on there that's going to stay oily like gasoline or anything. Brake cleaner is a good one. It dries right away. Probably have to put a couple of coats of this on because this will probably get bumped and it's not coming out. There's a little bit. I'm not getting enough out of there. Have to stick something in it. There we got, can't really tell gray on gray, but got a thin coat of silicone on there. Let that dry for, by the time I'm done with all this, I might wipe some more on there and then put some tape on it. Next thing is to start slicing into these wires and hook these up. One of these, one over there, came off pretty good without too much trouble. This one gave me some trouble, and the bolts broke off, and it was all swollen up and pushed out with a bunch of rust in there. I mean, I went to the welding bench and grabbed a chipping hammer and came out here and started beating on it and got a lot of that off of there. But these bolts are stuck in there. I'm going to take a little grinder, try to get them off. If not, maybe I can get a torch out here. Hopefully I can get them off with the grinder. Well, I got this one off with the grinder. I mean, it's still in there, just got to poke through, it'll fall out. This one is going to spin, so I'm going to hang a vice grip on the back of it and then put the grinder on it. Nothing on that side to even grab. Well, about all I can do is just spray a little Rust-Oleum primer on there. And go about the wiring. It's a perfect fit. I'm just gonna go ahead and put these on there and screw them down and do the wiring from, just pull the wires up here and do them up there. I went on and cut this end off because I know I'm not going to use that original setup again anymore. And one of these wires is clean enough to solder like it is, but the rest of them, the other four, are all black, so I'm going to dip them as well, like I did that ground wire. Got the ground wire soldered on there, got my shrink wrap up here. I just slid it up, put a little kink in there to keep it from sliding down. It's cooled down now enough I can put it on here. And shrink it on there tight with the soldering iron. And I'm going to do the rest of them that way in their respective places. I got the tail lights turned on the truck. I got the ground wires connected. I got my test lead. The test light ground clip is on one of these nuts or bolts on the back of this light over here. This light's not on tight because I want that paint to dry. So, assuming we got a ground, tail lights should be the brown wire, should light up the test light. But we don't have a ground, do we? I'll have to find another ground. Well, I clamped the vice grip onto this piece of framework here and twisted it, broke through the paint. We got it ground, but I'm not getting my proper colors like I would have expected. I'm not getting it on the brown wire like you would on any American car. I'm getting it on the green wire. That should be the right turn. But before I just go ahead with that, that's my tail light, I'm going to go on ahead and put one of the turn signals on. Okay, the right turn signal is on. Now let's see, where's that gonna, that should have been the green wire, that's the ground. Right turn signal is on the yellow wire. Well, that's what the test light's for, to find out, because they got these colors. I don't know how that happened, but they're wrong. Turns out the brown one, that from my experience has always been the tail light. I guess Freightliner does it different, or somebody wired this thing in wrong, I don't know which. But the brown one goes to the left turn signal. And I'm going to go in and turn the turn signals off, and then see if we got, put the backup light, see if that comes on. We don't have a backup light now, so maybe we'll get one. Let's see what happens. Getting the backup light here on the blue wire. Key has to be on though. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one on the same way I did this one, and the left turn doesn't have to get a Y, it doesn't get two wires put into one, it's only going to get one wire. Got it all done. Now we just got to do a relatively neat job of tying all these together, taping them up, keep them weatherproof and out of the way. Now that it's all taped up and I got this wire wrap stuff around it, and I'm just sticking it back up in here. We got holes in this thing. I'm putting zip ties, tuck it up in there safely. Everything's got to be tucked away safely where it can minimize the movement or anything that can bump into it. And that's all there is to this job. Thanks for watching.